Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Pitch Side podcast. I'm your host, the HOD of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version and subscribe to the YouTube channel. Enable notifications to receive all the updates from these episodes and all the content on the channel. Follow us on social media and listen on Spotify, Google Podcast or any other platform you with the Champions League and the action from the round of 16 second leg on Tuesday and Wednesday. And let's kick things off from Anfield, in fact, where Liverpool hosted Inter Milan. And we talked a lot about this game being advantage Liverpool, the stadium, the fact that there is, the home support. But Inter Milan didn't go down without swinging, and boy did they swing in their game, of course. This was one of the games where you can clearly and proudly say that the red card really changed the game. Although, there's another thing that changed the game. Jurgen Klopp, I would say, made the same mistake of the first leg by playing, Thiago and someone who is relatively unexperienced in these kind of situations in Curtis Jones alongside Fabinho, which in front of a midfield that has Vidal, Brozovic and Çalhanoğlu, three experienced guys. It really gave those guys the advantage of controlling the midfield, tightening the spaces, and of course, isolate, let's say, those three from the supplying the front three, which started with Sadio Mane, Mo Salah, and Diogo Jota for this one, with no Firmino, of course, available. Inter Milan had a great game, to be fair. It was almost better than the game at Giuseppe Meazza, where they will end up regretting, really, considering how the game ended. The first half was pretty tight between the two sides. Inter Milan had a good defensive performance. It didn't allow loads of spaces for Liverpool. There was not so much service coming from Alexander-Arnold or Robertson on either side. So there was a paralysed, I think, Liverpool attack in the first half. And Inter Milan had a couple of good chances that with a better finishing could have been better. The same thing could have been said about the second half, which, I think the first 20 minutes of the second half were probably among the worst Liverpool ever played and the best Inter Milan ever played this season. Conversely, Inter Milan had, before scoring the goal, actually, from Lautaro Martinez, they had, in the 5 minutes or 7 minutes preceding the goal, there were, 3 or 4 chances, clear-cut chances to score, that with a better finishing, again, could have been done better. Of course, with no Dzeko, Dzeko would have finished at least one of them, I'm sure of that. Lautaro Martinez had one right in the 18-yard box where he could have scored, but he, repelled it and rectified it by scoring a beautiful goal right afterwards. The goal really was, I think, a bunch of mistakes from the Liverpool defenders, from Alexander-Arnold, Matip giving the ball away to Perisic, then, of course, Alexander-Arnold not really covering his side, although the attack was still, starting. And then, of course, Van Dijk, who, as good of a defender as he is, sometimes his style of defending, choosing not to be, direct, not to involve with players and not to tackle them, sometimes is costly. And this was one of the cases that it was costly. He gave too much space for Lautaro Martinez on the goal, and Lautaro Martinez's first touch was shooting straight into the top. But unfortunately, after that, for Inter Milan, they received a red card. Alexis Sanchez received a red card. A little bit harsh, maybe, but I think, well-deserved. He caught Fabinho on the follow-up. You can't really argue with it too much. I think in the heat of the game, the Inter fans would hate it and would not really like to talk about it, but I think once you look at it retrospectively after the game or in a show, I think you'll understand why it was given. And obviously it was a second yellow card, it wasn't a straight red, it was a second yellow from a first challenge on Thiago in the first half that probably deserved the red directly then, because that was higher than the actual challenge that he received the red card for. And of course the game changed by then. You knew that Inter Milan are not going to have any sort of opportunity to attack again at Anfield. And with Jurgen Klopp making the right changes finally, taking in Thiago and Curtis Jones, entering Jordan Henderson and Naby Keita, and really putting his weight in the midfield, similar to what he did in the first leg, really. But this Liverpool had only a couple of good opportunities, really, to score. Salah hit the post twice and couldn't score. The chances were really slim, I think, for Liverpool. The opportunities were really far and few in between in concern. Of course, there was a glorious opportunity for Luis Diaz late on and Vidal blocked it off the line, gloriously blocking it off the line. I mean, overall, that's it for Liverpool. I mean, the important thing is the win, but I think the performance would be very, very concerning for Liverpool and for Klopp. Not just because of the Champions League, but because they're still within the race in the Premier League, so they don't really have much room for error in this one. Inter Milan, they went down swinging. They really did their best performance in the game, and I think they really can regret now the first leg result, the first leg performance in particular, a better finishing in both games, and this game could have been much, much different. If the red card didn't happen, potentially we could have had a different match as well, and the substitutions that Inzaghi made would have been more impactful, I would say. But definitely, Liverpool, I think over 2 legs, I mean, edged it. I'm not going to say deserved to win and to go through, but edged it just about in both legs, just because of their quality, particularly in the first leg, because in the second leg, they didn't really show much for it. Moving on to the Allianz Arena, and it was Bayern Munich versus Salzburg in the second leg. The first leg was pretty exhausting for Bayern. 1-1 draw that made everybody think really twice about what is going to happen. But I think, I'm going to say something. I think social media really gave a wrong impression about this game. Social media gave an impression that Bayern is an underdog in this one. Like, there was a lot of talk about what if Bayern is eliminated? What if Bayern is eliminated? What's going to happen? Are they going to sack Nagelsmann if they're going to eliminate it? I didn't think for once that Bayern are going to get eliminated by Salzburg. I thought it will be hard. Yes, the first game was hard indeed in Austria, but I never thought that Bayern will miss the chance at Allianz Arena in front of their fans to win and to go through. I didn't expect it to be 7-1, to be fair, but I expected Bayern to go through. I was confident that Bayern will do it and will go through. Although this game still has a couple of things to talk about, really. Obviously, Nagelsmann is still insisting on the 3 at the back, and again, I can understand it because no Davis and no Goretzka. We can't really play with the same lineup. Musiala as a deeper role player, I don't think it suited him. I don't think it did. He's not Goretzka. He's not Goretzka, that's one. And also, I think the skills that he has are much applied to a higher role up the pitch, like a number 10 or a left or a right winger. That's where Musiala, I think, should play, in my opinion. These are, I think, a couple of notes that I had. The start of the game was pretty frantic, the first 5 to 10 minutes. So Salzburg had a couple of opportunities where you could sense that they might have got an early goal that would have changed the complexion of the game. I don't think it would have eliminated Bayern, but I think it would have pushed Bayern more and would have pressured them even better. But obviously, once the first penalty was drawn by Lewandowski, beautiful turn, by the way, for that. I mean, I would have been certain he would have scored if the penalty didn't happen. The penalty did happen. He scored another penalty in the 23rd minute. Lewandowski again, same angle, same technique. He scores and make it 2-0, and then of course make it 3-0 via a collection of mistakes, I think, from Salzburg. I mean, I didn't understand why Salzburg were playing like Leeds in this one. Like, they were losing 2-0, and they were still going up and still going high and still trying to play on the counter. And I understand this might be a German, injected mentality in a way, but this was very, very suicidal from Salzburg. They were going high, leaving spaces for basically 6 or 7 players from Bayern. I mean, Bayern were playing offensively very, very good. There was Koeman, Gnabry, Sané, Müller, Musiala, and there was support from Kimmich. So there's like 7 players properly that could potentially score for Bayern. Lewandowski get the 3rd goal, and then Gnabry made it 4 inside 30 minutes, and that is it. The game was done and dusted. I mean, the second half was basically formalities. Bayern had the 5th goal. Salzburg scored because, yes, they would. You'd expect them to score because Bayern really let it be loose after that. I think the 6th goal was an inevitability as well from Thomas Müller, who had a brace in this game, and the 5th goal in particular. Like, both his goals were pretty good. in terms of finishing for the fifth goal, the technique, the way he turned around, he swiveled and he just leathered it with the left foot into the corner. And the sixth goal for the basically tiki-taka that Bayern were doing in that goal, the touch from Musiala, Leroy Sané setting up Thomas Müller with a cutback, and it was 6-0 for Bayern. Sané, who got the 7th goal himself with 2 assists, which is a decent performance from him, although it didn't start the game really well. 7-1 it is for Bayern, guaranteeing the qualification, going to the quarterfinal with a good performance, again, to restore a little bit of confidence and boost, I think, the support of the fans and the confidence of the fans in Bayern, including myself, really, after a rough patch over the last month or so. Obviously, the hope is still that Davis and Goretzka will be back by the quarterfinal, so that Bayern will have at least a resemblance of a full squad and return to their normal 4-2-3-1 and see how things will work out. Obviously, there's going to be a strong opponent Bayern will face in the quarterfinals. There's no escaping that now. Look at the lay of the land. You have City qualifying, Liverpool qualifying, you have either Real or PSG, and then of course you have Chelsea, and it's going to be unbelievable. Atletico Madrid and Man United. It's going to be unbelievably a strong field of teams in the quarterfinal. Ajax as well are no slouches. So it's going to be really interesting to see how Bayern will deal with the rest of the season in terms of the Bundesliga leading into the Champions League. Neuer returned, Neuer returned to goal, which was much more secure feeling than seeing Sven Ulreich in goal. It's much comfortable seeing Neuer, saving balls and being in the net for Bayern. Congratulations for Bayern and congratulations for Liverpool as well. Let's move on to what happened on Wednesday, and to just put things out of the way, Man City drawn against Sporting 0-0, a goalless game. Of course, City won 5-0 in the first leg, so really there's no need to talk about that game at all. Let's just focus and dive straight in to the big tie in the Santiago Bernabeu between Real Madrid and PSG, and congratulations, of course, to Real Madrid for qualifying to the quarter-final of the Champions League. But of course the circumstances of the game do not make this a miracle as much as it is all the doing of both sides, of both Real Madrid and PSG. Now obviously the big point about this game heading into the second leg was the absentees for Real Madrid. Casemiro and Mendy were suspended because of yellow cards. Kroos was doubtful to be in the game, but he started, which I thought was wrong in the first place, because he didn't really get involved a lot. And then, of course, you have the problem with the left back who's going to be playing, Nacho or Alaba. Eventually, it was mostly, or at the start of the game we thought it would be Nacho, but eventually it turned out that it was Alaba, starting, Valverde playing his role that doesn't really fit him. PSG didn't change the bill, obviously a 4-3-3, Messi, Neymar and Mbappe started up front. And for the first 5 minutes or so, obviously the calmness of PSG in the first half was really, I would say, unprecedented. I never saw PSG as calm as they are in that first half, really rolling the ball around, playing some good passes, dominating the midfield, doing almost a copy of the same first half that they played in the first leg, but with a little bit more Real Madrid pressure, particularly later on in the half after the goal from Kylian Mbappe. There was a portion of the half, I think from 15 minutes in until like half an hour, until 40 minutes when the goal was scored, where PSG completely controlled the game and did a copy of the first half that they did. And again, I thought the start of the game was wrong for Real Madrid in terms of the personnel. I thought choosing to play with Kroos and Modric as two central midfielders really neutralised their roles up front and gave Valverde a role that doesn't suit him as almost a number 10. Like, if you see him the way they're placed on the pitch, it feels like Kroos and Modric are both screening the defence, and you have Valverde, becoming a much higher player right behind Karim Benzema. And that, of course, gave PSG all the time in the world to dominate. They invited the midfield to dominate, invited the space, in that midfield to dominate for the likes of Verratti, who was immense in that first half, really. And really dominated. Danilo Pereira basically made a front with Hakimi and Neymar on the right hand side to cover on, or Messi on the right hand side sometimes to cover on Vinicius Junior, about the only lively player that was in the first half for Real Madrid, realistically speaking. I mean, it was a bad first half from Real Madrid, not just offensively, because they had no real bite. Like, they had a couple of opportunities, but not exactly something that would be dangerous as far as PSG is concerned, who managed to control the midfield, roll the ball around. At certain points it felt so desperate for Real Madrid in that first half, but definitely PSG deserve all the credit in that first half for what they did. In the second half, it was a different story. I mean, this is a game, typical, you can call it a game of two halves, really, because the first half, I'm not going to say all PSG, but it was all, it was better PSG in that first half. In the second half, and practically after the goal that Real Madrid scored, or let's say was gifted to them by PSG, things became much different. And I don't really understand this habit for PSG of bottling it the way they do, of trying to make things very, very, very lofty, very kind of showbiz for them. Almost every year in the Champions League, when they are pressed, when they are in a really cornered situation, they start panicking. And the panic mode for PSG is different from the panic mode to let's say, other players, to other teams, sorry. The panic mode for PSG is defending, or even starting scattering themselves around the pitch, not even knowing what they do. As well, as far as the other teams are concerned, they started attacking, for example, they organised themselves a little bit better. For PSG, it's just disorganising themselves all over the place. And when you are that panicked in front of Real Madrid at the Bernabeu, you deserve to get beaten. You deserve to concede 3 goals in quite quick succession, really. There was like 7 minutes or 8 minutes between the 3 goals, and it was all absolute calamities at the back. In that way, there was serious displacement for the players. You don't know how Verratti was moving afterwards. It really sipped in that PSG are going to lose it again, and they did. The moment they conceded that equaliser, thanks to a gift from Donnarumma, Real Madrid started pressing high. They knew it, the fans knew it, they started pushing behind them. And I think it was an inevitability at that point that Real Madrid are going to turn things around. And Karim Benzema, hats off to him. He might not be my personal favourite striker. He might not be someone who I put at the top of the best players in the world. But he's definitely up there. And he forces you to respect him at the very least. With his continuous performances since Ronaldo left Real Madrid. He scores a hat-trick again. And he leads Real Madrid to glory and to qualification to the quarter-final. And it's all PSG's doing, really. Mostly, although Ancelotti really fixed some things in the second half by introducing Camavinga and introducing Rodrigo, which sort of kind of rectified the path a little bit and made things right. But certainly PSG, it was all their own doing. Pochettino stayed just watching. I think in 64, 65 minutes he was almost convinced that he's going to win the game when he was still at 1-0 right before that gift from Donnarumma, which was a big turning point. Like, this is the kind of goal that is a turning point that changes the complexion of the game. And when you gift Real Madrid a space like that, when you give them an inch, they really make it into an acre and make it into a whole, 50 something, 100 yards inside a field. They just capitalized immediately, and Benzema with a beautiful hat-trick. And PSG, I think at that point, they were desperate really after the second goal, and since the second goal it started sipping in on them that they won't qualify, and that's basically what happened. Real Madrid sealed the deal. PSG knocked out again, bottling it out again in spectacular fashion, I would say this time, because at least against Man City last season, for example, they were losing in the first leg, or in years before, against, like in the final against Bayern, it was 0-0, and it was just played on the tightest of details, for example. Is this worse than the remontada against Barcelona? I reckon so, because at least in the remontada against Barcelona basically playing alone for the whole 90 minutes in that game at the Camp Nou, like they were dominating the game, and it was an inevitability since the start of the game, as Barcelona scored early back then, that PSG would lose. But this time, it was different. PSG went to Bernabeu, they scored themselves in the first half, they went leading 1-0 at halftime, and they still flopped it, and they still managed to lose that lead in the second half in a spectacular fashion. As I mentioned, it's almost laughable unbelievable how PSG conceded those 3 goals. Like, from the second goal to the third goal, like literally on the kick of the second goal, from the second goal, they lose the ball again, and they lose it, and Modric just absolutely, sets up as Vinicius Junior running. Then you cut it back. Modric, cuts it back, sets Benzema up for a third. Again, with the protection that Camavinga provided at the back in the midfield, it allowed Modric up higher, and it allowed Valverde to play with him in the midfield in a much comfortable position for him. And then you have, of course, Rodrigo starting on the left and Vinicius starting on the right, and you have all the weapons in the world. Lucas Vazquez coming in as right back, offensively making it better than Carvajal. Obviously, it was not about defending, really, it was more about offensively being better, and it was one-side game for the last, let's say, 30 or 25 minutes of the game, and Real Madrid completely deserved and utterly deserving of their qualification to the quarter-finals. Of course, congratulations to them, to Man City, to Bayern Munich, and to Liverpool, the qualifiers from this week. We'll turn our attention now to the second European club competition, of course, the UEFA Europa League, which has its round of 16 playing today. Of course, there's one game that's been cancelled, with Leipzig versus Spartak Moscow, of course, because of the current situation in Ukraine and the sanctions imposed by FIFA and UEFA on Russian football. Spartak Moscow will not play that game, and Leipzig will get an automatic qualification. As far as the rest of the games, of course, 2 games took place yesterday, in fact. Real Betis played against Eintracht Frankfurt at home. Frankfurt defeated them 1-0 thanks to goals from Kostic and Kamada, ahead of a goal sandwiched between them, a goal for Betis by Nabil Fekir. But Porto hosted Olympique Lyonnais, and again it's a win for the away side. 1-0 it is for Olympique Lyonnais, thanks to a goal from Lucas Paqueta. The rest of the games, of course, pretty interesting games actually. Sevilla versus West Ham United, that's a game I'm really looking forward to watch. As I mentioned, Leipzig Spartak Moscow, Leipzig qualifying automatically. Barcelona Galatasaray at the Camp Nou. Atalanta Bayer Leverkusen, an interesting game to watch as well. Rangers versus Crvena Zvezda, Red Star Belgrade. Sporting Braga playing against AS Monaco, of course. These are the rest of the games from the round of 16 of the Europa League. 5 games in total today. I feel like Barcelona might be the favourites at the moment in the Europa League from the look at the lay of the land. I mean, there's not a lot of teams or clubs that feel now, at the moment, at the very least, that are very favourites alongside Barcelona. Maybe Bayer Leverkusen, I still believe that they are one of the favourites, I think. They play a good football, really, for the most part, and they have some serious good squad. I mean, when you win against Real Betis away from home, it is a pretty big achievement, because Real Betis themselves this season have been really good, although the last couple of matches at home were not their finest hour, let's say, and let's put it this way. Elsewhere, I think Sevilla have to be considered. I don't see West Ham as favourites in that tie, or in general. I think they will be eliminated eventually by Sevilla overall. Rangers, I think they have the advantage over Red Star Belgrade. I would say the same about Monaco against Sporting Braga. The first leg in Portugal probably will be different, but I think they will do similar to what Lyonnais did. I think they will win away from home against Braga, and they will have a lead into the second leg. So my predictions, I think, for the qualifying teams, of course, who will join Leipzig. Lyonnais and Frankfurt, Olympique Lyonnais and Frankfurt will qualify. It will be, I think, Barcelona. They will do it. They feel better, at least at the moment. Atalanta against Leverkusen, I feel Bayern Leverkusen over the 2 legs have a better chance of doing it. Rangers will qualify over Red Star Belgrade, Monaco over Braga. That is my lineup for the quarterfinal that I predict. Thanks for watching / listening for the episode. That's it. I'm your boy, the HID of the PSP. Like, share, comment on the YouTube version of the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, enable notifications to receive all the updates, and of course follow us on social media and listen on every available podcast listening platform. Until next time, take care and goodbye. Behind closed doors, I'm a fool for your love.